Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Toppermost of the Popper. Wait a minute. Welcome to another edition of Fab Gab. Oh, wait. Things we said today? What is this? Oh, never mind. Everybody, thank you, and welcome to another edition of. Oh, what are we? It's been so long since we've done a show for Talk More Talk, a Solos Beatles videocast, and it's great to be back with my buddies talking about all things solo Beatles. I'm Tom Hunyadi, one of four co-hosts, and you may know me from my other show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, where me and Annie Nichols talk all things Paul McCartney. And on this show today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Paul McCartney. We're going to be talking about one hand clapping and the theatrical experience that we just had this past weekend in reliving as Queen's showing, reliving the one hand clapping that was filmed 50 years ago this year. And joining me, as they always do, are my three cohorts, and I'm very excited to talk to them this evening about this very special event, as maybe we can call it. Is first of all, if I say what's the things we said today, every little thing, we're talking about Beatles songs, right? We're not talking about anything else but Beatles songs, right? No, we're actually talking about shows that Ken Michaels is a part of, right? Every little thing, which is the syndicated radio show that he puts on, and then things we said today, his podcast that he does with the great Darren DeVivo and Alan Kozin and Ken Michaels created that show long time ago, way back in what 2012 was it?
That was me and Steve Marinucci created it.
Yes, exactly. Steve Marinucci and Ken Michaels created the show way back in 2012. Ken Michaels, it's great to see you. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. In fact, one of those titles you threw out is also the name of a new documentary. So it's more than just a podcast.
Very good. Very good. Next up is a guy who just loves to create wonderful content on his YouTube channel, Mean Mr. Mayo, and he does everything from rants to record store reality videos and reviews of Beatles content, whether it's Beatles or solo. And he's got a movie channel that he'll talk to us about as well. But Joe Mayo, he's everywhere. He's if you don't know him by now, you got to know him. He's a great guy. Joe, my friend, what's going on?
What's going on? Well, it's Beatles, mostly Beatles first on the Mean Mr. Mayo channel, and rant right. Videos kind of like on the side. But what's going on? Well, this pre-recorded version of our show, I'm just trying to wake up a little bit because a little late today. But I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to
speaking of late, because she was at the bar, drinking it up, watching. No, I'm just teasing. But anyways, yes, we are doing this on a Sunday night. Because the Queen just got out of seeing one hand clapping and seeing it with some friends. There you go. You know her from, she's the co-host of Toppermost of the Poppermost. You know her from her wonderful books, Michael Jackson, FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, right? Songs they were singing, the guided towards the lesser known Beatles tracks, and so on and so on and so on. She's everywhere. She's co-hosted on every single Beatles podcast possible. She is the queen of everything. Kit O'Toole. Kit, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tom. Joe. Yes, this is as fresh as it gets. I literally just got home from seeing this in the theater. Like I have my notes that I've scribbled while watching the movie. This is
look at
fresh,
those scribbles, man.
And they are scribbles. I scribbled
are you sure
in the
those
dark.
Are those doctor prescriptions I see there?
I was going to take notes, but don't need it, my friend. Don't need it.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, Nina.
No sense going over what you already know.
Yep.
Right. Anyways, before we get to our thoughts from this event that we all saw this weekend, we're gonna get with Ken Michaels. Ken Michaels is gonna talk about the news, and then we're also going to hear about his experience singing Ringo Starr after the news because he had just saw Ringo as well. So, Ken, let's get to the news.
I was very lucky to see Ringo Starr because I was
Yes,
entertained
Yeah.
yes, you
by the
were.
City
Yes,
Musical.
right.
All right. First news item. Perfect segue there, Tom. Ringo
Mhm.
had to cancel the last two shows from his tour with the All-Star Band due to illness. Ringo had a cold and, according to one source, had lost his voice. His
Hmm.
doctor recommended resting it out, and therefore his show in Philadelphia at the TD Pavilion at the Man and in New York City for Radio City Music Hall were both canceled. They are saying these two dates will not be rescheduled and that all ticket holders will be getting a refund.
Mm.
So obviously our main concern is with Ringo right now and his health, so we're hoping for a speedy recovery. And who knows what lies in store with the All-Star Band? Probably. He's been doing it every year. We'll probably get back to doing it early next year. Remember, we did hear from a press release that we should be expecting news in October about Ringo's new country album. And so looking forward to hearing whatever details we can on that. I just want to get one thing out of the way here so I don't forget. I'm sure in the last couple of days you've heard this rumor about Paul McCartney's new album. Um, Apparently it's supposed to be called The Seven Line, and it's supposed to be coming out, at least the rumor is, October 14th. It's not official, this announcement. It's extremely unlikely that Paul McCartney would announce this 2 weeks before it comes out. You usually find out a couple of months before a new album's about to come out. And if this was going to happen this soon, he'd put it on his website, so I happen to think that it's probably going to be coming out next year, maybe early next year. The only thing that I have heard about it is that the singer Lulu, who is best known for the song To Sir With Love, great British singer. She's been friends with Paul for a long time, and she said that she's contributing backing vocals for the new album. So that's all I know at this point. We may find out something very soon. What's that, Tom?
So okay, so we had just done a show on Two Legs with our friend Dino V, who you
Yeah.
have had on the show as well, and who is very friendly with some people that may work at MPL. I don't know. I'm just saying, but he may have contacted somebody there to ask about this release, and this person may have said this is the first I'm hearing of it. So this is, I think it's BS. And Paul has, I think, has come out in an interview saying that he is working on new music but hasn't finished mixing yet, and to expect it some point next year.
And if you follow the trends of what Paul has done in recent years, he likes to
Yeah.
drop little hints before an.
Right, right.
Yep.
So he hasn't done so yet, but it's I personally think it's a release for sometime next year,
Yep.
but highly unlikely it's going to come out this soon.
Yeah. As much as I would have liked to have seen a new album this year, because it has been 4 years now since McCartney 3, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have to wait a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So in more news, this is probably old news to most of you, but we haven't been on for a few weeks. Um, Capitol Records will be releasing a box set on the Beatles called the Beatles 1964 US Albums in Mono. It includes the 7 albums, Meet the Beatles' second album, A Hard Day's Night, Something New, Beatles 65, The Early Beatles, and The Beatles Story. All the albums will be made individually except for The Beatles Story, which you can only get in the box sets. They have been analog cut for 180-gram vinyl from their original mono master tapes, and all 7 albums will feature faithfully replicated artwork plus 4 panel inserts with essays from Bruce Spicer. And this release date for the box set is November the 22nd. We just spoke on Things We Said Today on my other podcast about this, and apparently for all the collectors, there's going to be a Target release. There's a colored vinyl for Meet the Beatles. They didn't know what color it
Yes.
was. Do you know, Tom?
That's
What?
light blue, right?
OPEC
I'm
blue.
sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's like a OPEC blue or something like that.
Okay. And that's the only colored vinyl that I know of.
As of now. As
Okay.
of now. Yeah.
All right. Talk about the power of the music of the Beatles. Their new song from last year, Now and Then, just surpassed 58 million views on YouTube. November 2nd marks the 1 year anniversary for the song, and let's just hope it makes it to 60 million by then. The song has been averaging 5 million views per month, thanks to John Bazzini, our good friend, for that information.
So he's responsible for the 5 million listens per month. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't
Or
say
you're
that,
saying
but it's
okay.
responsible for many of them.
Okay.
Going to push it up to 60 million. I know.
All right. Thanks, John. Good job.
In celebration of the 50th anniversary, it's really 51 years, for the greatest album of all time, George Harrison's Living in the Material World, Dark Horse Records and BMG will be celebrating with a suite of new releases, including a new mix album of Living in the Material World from Grammy Award winner Paul Hicks. There will be a super deluxe edition album which contains 2 CDs, one for the remix, the other for outtakes of every song, plus 2 LPs, a Blu-ray with Dolby Atmos for all of the audio, a 60-page booklet with extensive sleeve notes, photography, and artwork from the Harrison Archive, as well as a 7-inch single of the previously unheard recording of Sunshine Light for Me, Sail Away Raymond, which of course George wrote and gave to Ringo for the Ringo album, and George plays on it, members of the band are on it, but this one, it's got George singing, and of course, Ringo on drums. Also, this will be available, Living in the Material World will be available as both a double LP and a double CD deluxe edition. The double LP version will come in a gatefold sleeve with a 12-page booklet. The 2 CD deluxe version comes in a clamshell box with 2 printed wallets and a 20-page booklet plus a poster. The main album will also be available as a single album and also a single CD version. And there's also limited edition 1 album colored vinyl exclusives available from the official George Harrison online store. That one will be a purple color. There'll be one from Amazon, a clear color. Barnes and Noble will have an orange color vinyl. All formats are available for pre-order right now. I'm sure Tom has ordered all the different colored ones. So has Joe.
No, I haven't.
Just
Those days are gone.
No.
What's that?
I
The days are gone for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
I did.
I may get the orange one, and maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, I did pre-order the creamy clear, whatever they would call it, from Amazon. That purple though on the website is very tempting. I may do it. I did get a shirt as well, so I'm all in.
Mhm.
You got a shirt for the other thing we're talking about tonight.
Yeah.
Also, in advance of its release, Take 18 of Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth has been available now on streaming platforms. If you need any more information about living in the material world, well, you can call me. But an easier way to find out is going to materialworldfoundation.com. Again, the release date is November 15th for that. It should be known that as of November 16th, I will be unavailable for quite a while. You won't be able to reach me for a couple months.
What what did you think of was it Take 18 without? What did you think about the song without the slide guitar?
It's good. I like it when it's stripped down like that. This is what we've
Yeah.
been exposed to, especially with all the Lennon stuff, where you're just hearing a few different elements. But it sounds like the same backing tracks, but with a different
Mm.
lead vocal. I like the fact that the second disc has got an outtake for every single song. That's nice. I just wish that there was more unreleased stuff. But you're dealing with a single album as opposed to All Things Must Pass. You know, I find it really interesting to see how the Lennons, the McCartneys, and the Harrisons handled their catalog completely differently, all three of them.
Yep.
The Lennons give you everything that they possibly can and make it interesting. I think the McCartneys can give you a lot, but sometimes what they give you is stuff that's already been released, like B-sides and stuff like that. I really wish that everyone would follow the Lennon, template of things with elements mixes, elemental mixes, evolutionary mixes, all that, it's the most you can hope for. But the Harrison family, they trim everything down to just what they consider to be essential. They don't, some people might think what the Lennons give is overdoing it. It's too much stuff. So with the Harrisons, they give you a full CD of outtakes. Um, yeah. And as I said in the other podcast that I do, I'd love it if every Harrison album had one disc of outtakes for every song. I'd be quite pleased with that. And unreleased stuff too. I don't like the fact that the only way to get Sunshine Light for Me is on the box set.
Yeah.
Although we're gonna get to hear it anyway on YouTube
We
and
all
platforms and
we all
everything.
know Joe. We all know Joe's waiting for the take one of "Can't Stop Thinking About
Well,
You."
that's on Extra Texture.
That's right. You got the albums mixed
Yeah,
up.
I'm sorry. It was a good
Well,
joke,
I'm
but
just saying we know we can't wait for. What I'm saying is you can't wait because
well,
we're hoping that we get a box set for each one. And I know
Mhm.
Joe how much Joe's dying. He can't wait for extra
you
Yeah.
texture.
know, I want the, well, I don't know about Extra Texture, but in general, I'm with Ken. I'd rather have more like Lennon stuff, the way
Mm.
with the Harrisons, the approach
Mhm.
of the Lennon stuff. But I like to have a little more, for living in the material world. I'd like to have a little more bonus stuff
Mhm.
as far as the music,
Yeah.
I'm
evolution.
surprised. I'm surprised Miss Odell isn't on there like it was in the previous
Yeah.
CD as a bonus track.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying to me because of I think was it 2014? What year was it when they put the LP out, or maybe even the CDs too of Living in the Material World, and they had Deep Blue on there, and I said, well, that was 1971,
Right.
you
Right.
know. So if you want to, boys, I'll tell you, what's the other one? Wow,
I don't care anymore was the other B
geez,
side.
the other seven. Oh, Bangladesh. I think
Right.
some people were saying, where's Bangladesh? And I said, oh no, well, that's all 71. No, that song and Deep Blue, they're both
Yeah, I think
71.
that's coming. I think that's coming.
So
Well,
they
whatever.
got it on the last release of Living the Material World.
Right.
So they're expecting
Right.
that it was going to be on this one too. But
Mm.
this
Mhm.
one they're going more
Yeah.
by, I guess, the actual year.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. And and
But
I've also heard people say, well, is this what George would really want? But let's not
Mhm.
forget, back in 2000, he released, All Things Must Pass with a brand new version of My
Right.
Sweet Lord.
Right.
And, he had to have been working on Living in the Material World before he passed.
Mhm.
So these were projects that I think he would have probably wanted out had he lived, had he lived.
Yeah.
it's hard to know. I think George was very critical and selective as to what would come out. He wouldn't
Mhm.
want everything out there. But
Mhm.
he also said, where's the effect? I've got more unreleased stuff than
Right. That's
breathe.
right.
Yeah.
So why would he tease his fans like that and not think into the future that this stuff
Right.
would come out or some of it would?
Right.
Anyway, for the collector, I say that a lot, don't I?
Mhm.
Ringo Starr's albums for Stop and Smell the Roses and Old Wave will be coming out on picture disc. And that's also on November 15th to compete with Living in the Material World.
Oh wow.
The new documentary called Daytime Revolution about the week when John and Yoko co-hosted the Mike Douglas Show in 1972 will have its theatrical showing on John's birthday, October 9th, and now I hear it'll be coming to DVD and Blu-ray. That'll be on November 26th. November's a busy month, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I'm going. I have tickets to see it at the theater on
Mhm.
October 9th.
The
And
one
then
in
I'm thinking,
Huntington?
when are we going to do a show about it then? Because most people, if you don't see it in the theater, you won't be seeing it till the end of November.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
that's not playing in Michigan, for one thing, and
Mhm.
and plus that's the night I'm seeing ELO. Is
Oh
on
wow.
October 9th.
Hmm.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I got to wait until the release of the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
You can look online and see all the theatrical showings and put in your town or your zip code,
Yep.
and it'll tell you where it's showing. And there are no theaters in Connecticut where I live that's showing it,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
it is showing in New York. And I'm figuring there was one in Huntington, Long Island, which is probably where you're going to see
That's
it.
where I'll go to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
And look for my upcoming review on Cinema Centuries. I got a screener, so
Oh.
look for my review. Mhm.
Well, in order
Very
for
good.
us to review it before it's in the movie theaters, there must be some way that all four of us can get to see it
Yep.
before it comes out.
Yep.
Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah.
Nudge, nudge.
If anyone can think of anything.
Yep.
The new movie on Brian Epstein, Midas Man, got conflicting reports here because I was told it would be in movie theaters October 10th. Not sure about that, but I have heard it will be coming to Amazon Prime Video on
Yes.
October the 30th. Also, this baby just came out. The new Mind Games coffee
Yes.
table size box set, which I just bought. Tom just bought.
I got that too. Mhm.
Sure, we'll be commenting about that book fairly soon.
Yes.
And also Elliot Mintz's new book, Instant
Hmm.
Karma, John Yoko and Me. That comes out October 22nd. News on the Beatles' sons. Julian Lennon's new photo book called Life's Fragile Moments was originally due to come out September 9th. It's now being delayed until December 3rd.
Hmm.
And there's another new song that has come out from James McCartney called I'm Yours, which you can listen to on streaming services and also on YouTube. Okay. Brute Force, better known as Stephen Friedland. Actually, he's better known as Brute Force. He's known for his single with Apple Records, King of Pho. He'll be giving a concert and a Q&A with our colleague Ken Womack, and that's going to be happening at the Wood Theater at Monmouth University in New Jersey on December 2nd at 4:30 p.m.
And I told Ken if he doesn't get up and help lead the sing along in King of Pho, I'll be really mad.
Ken should do it a cappella.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nobody else
Absolutely.
singing but him.
Exactly.
And
yeah. It needs
we'll
to happen.
Get a video made of it. We can play it on the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, there is a Beatles documentary running for just 2 days at the Walter Reed Theater in Lincoln Center in New York, September 30th and October 1st, with the best title, one of two best titles you can have for a Beatles film. It's called Things We Said Today. It concerns August of 1965, as the Beatles are about to perform at their legendary first concert at Shea Stadium. The documentary is made up entirely of archival material from news station broadcasts to personal 8mm diaries. It's being made by Romanian filmmaker Andreea Ugica, Ugica. The film is also described as a work of imagination using superimposed animated drawings to memorialize this moment in history with poignant, distinctive flair. Those 2 days for the screening of the film are for standby only, September 30th and October 1st. There's no word about any future release for this as of yet. Thanks to Kyle Hand, one of our regular listeners and viewers, for letting me know about this. Now, on our last episode of Talk More Talk, it was a treat to interview session players David Spinoza and Kenny Asher, both of whom played on John Lennon's Mind Games album. Kenny was also on Walls and Bridges and Rock and Roll, and David Spinoza was on Ram and Ringo IV. And David did announce that he will have a special big band show performing all Beatles music, and now we have a date for that. It's actually November 17th at the Cutting Room in New York City. That will be at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and Kenny Asher will be in the band with David. So it's a good chance to not only hear the band, but the two guys on Mind Games you can probably meet in person. Okay, I know I'm going to do everything I can to make that show. And speaking of Kenny Asher, there's a way you can see him every single week. because he plays at the Birdland Jazz Club in New York City every Friday with his big band, and that's from 5:30 to 7 p.m. So you might want to check that out. Um, don't want to forget to mention, uh, since we talked about the McCartney rumor about a new album, his new tour starts this Tuesday when they'll be
Yes, it
playing in
does.
Uruguay. So, you know me, I'll be looking at the set list as soon as I can just to see if there's any changes whatsoever. I'm not expecting it, but hopefully we'll find that information about the tour very soon.
Right.
It'll be in the next few days.
It's just a rumor, but I heard that I don't know how true. Another rumor that Magneto and Titanium Man was going to be added to the set.
Oh, yay!
Just kidding. Just a little levity to break the tension.
Yay!
That's all the news I got.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ken. But while we're with you, Ken, you, as you mentioned, you got to see Ringo prior to his illness. So let us in on the scoop. Tell us what you thought of the show and how'd it go?
The show was like all of his other shows. Fantastic. You know, it's unfortunate that Edgar Winter isn't in the band. In fact, he wasn't in for the spring tour, and now he's not in with this one. I had heard that he wasn't at the spring tour because he had contacted COVID. I don't know what the situation is now, why he's not in the band at the present time, but they had somebody there to substitute, Buck Johnson, who's been playing with Aerosmith, and he was doing the keyboard work on this tour. And the band sounds fantastic. They've always sounded fantastic. There hasn't been too much change in the All-Star Band lineup, so you know what songs they're going to do. The playing, I mean, I can listen to Steve Lukather for hours and hours and hours. The guy can just play wonderfully. He could do this all in his sleep. He's that good. He's one of the greatest guitar players and greatest session players in music right now. But I love this particular lineup. I could say that about all the All-Star Band lineups, but they all seem like they get along great. They're all good friends. They like being a part of this band. You would think that, and this is how I would feel, um, if I was a musician and I was proud of my catalog and I kept playing the same three songs of my entire catalog every single night when there's so much more to pick from, then I would get a little bit tired of it.
Yeah.
But you're playing with Ringo here. So the other musicians know what an honor it is, and they all love being with each other. And I think that's why they're still together. It's you know exactly what they're going to do. Although with Hamish Stewart, you know, Pick Up the Piece is an obvious, and Cut the Cake was a top 10 hit for the average white band as well. He also does Work to Do, which is an Isley Brothers song that the average white band did on their first album, which, because I'm old enough to remember, used to get airplay on classic rock radio or rock radio at the time in New York City. So some people would remember Work to Do, even though it wasn't a hit single here in the States.
Right.
Colin Hay, you know, he's going to do Who Can It Be Now and Down Under and Overkill,
Overkill.
which is
Yeah.
amazing. That's one of my favorite songs from Men at Work. And
Yep.
Colin
Yep.
Hay's vocals were so fantastic on the record and still is now.
Mhm.
And of course, Steve Lukather's going to do Africa and Rosanna and Hold in Line. So that mixed with all of Ringo's songs, it's an enjoyable show. Many years ago, Ringo called the show All the Songs You Know and Love.
Yep.
That's what he sticks to. He keeps it safe. He doesn't really change anything. We've talked about the fact that recently Ringo hasn't done anything live past 1973. You know, he does Photograph. He also does I'm the Greatest from the Ringo album. And it's a sad thing. I wish that he would mix up the set list and do some new things. He's proud of his EPs. He's proud of the newer albums. To stick in one song or two from any of the newer stuff or anything from the past that got airplay, like Snookeroo, would be such a joy for
Yeah.
me. But he also is very conscious of when people get out of their seats and leave. And that's why he keeps it the show that it is. The only big disappointment that I could find in this in this show is that even with Edgar Winter missing, they didn't make up for the 3 songs that Edgar
Yeah,
Winter.
I was just going to
Mm.
ask you that question. I was just going to ask you that.
It's
Yeah.
a shorter show. It's more like an hour and 45 minutes. But
Yeah.
I have to keep thinking to myself that not everybody that goes to these shows is me and thinks like
Yeah.
me. And there's a lot of casual fans out there who have never seen Ringo live. I had a couple sitting right in front of me, and the guy was thrilled that Ringo sang with Little Help from My Friends, like he's not going to do that
Yeah.
song of all the songs.
Yeah.
That's his signature song in a way. So obviously, this person had never seen Ringo live before, but you get a lot of camera shots on the screen of people in the audience. You see families together. You see young kids there, and they're
Yeah.
thrilled and they're singing along with Beatles songs. And I love seeing that stuff. But I also love to just watch the band perform and see how well they get along and how they look at each other and interact with each other, and to see Ringo smiling and enjoying himself, and especially when he glances over at Greg Bissonette on drums, and the two of them are looking at each other and having fun and watching each other drum. I love all that stuff. And also from where I was sitting, I could see um, the keyboard player playing right on the keyboard, so I could see all the work that he was doing. I could hear it in the mix. The band was on fire. It
Mhm.
doesn't take too many rehearsals for them to get the
Right.
songs down pat, and they've been doing this for several years. It's just for me personally, I just wish that, the set list would change just a little bit. Ringo has such a great catalog to draw on. He could even do Beatles songs that he didn't sing lead to, and I would love it.
Yeah.
Um, there's so much that he can do, but I also feel, and I hate saying this, it's very difficult for me to be critical when you're dealing with Paul and Ringo, who are now in their 80s. They've given us the greatest catalog of all time. They've had the most successful solo careers of all time. What is there to complain about? Everything we get now is gravy, as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't mean I don't want them to mix things up a bit and give us something
Yeah.
they never have before. But I'm just glad to see Ringo enjoying himself and to see him healthy, except towards the end.
Yeah.
But I had a great time watching the show, and it's a good thing that I got tickets. I saw him at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut, and originally I was going to go on vacation in South Carolina around that time, and I canceled. We got tickets for this. We got tickets for Radio City. Boy, am I glad we canceled the trip in South Carolina. So I'm just lucky that I got to see Ringo this time.
Excuse me,
Mm.
Ken. I opted not to go this time, and it turned out it was the show that was canceled. So
Right.
at least
Yeah.
that made it easier on me. But personally, I always feel while I love Ringo and he's so spry for his age, he looks great, he performs great, he loves doing it. The band is great. I've always liked the band. But I just think this time I got a little tired of the same old, and I decided to skip it this time. But as I say, it was canceled anyway. But how long has he been with this band? It's got to be 10 or 12 years or something like that, right?
Well,
You know?
Steve Lukather is 12 years.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. Greg Raleigh was in the band for a while, and
Yeah.
Right.
That's
uh,
the
And
one I
Todd.
saw.
Yeah.
Todd, yeah, and Richard Page was in the band.
Yeah.
Colin Hayes been there a while because the one I
Yeah.
saw in 2018, he was
Right.
there.
Right.
Yeah. And
So,
Bissonette's been there for many
Yeah.
years too,
oh,
Yes.
even though he's not singing any songs. But
Hmm.
hey, if I know Greg Bissonette, he'll be with Ringo till he dies. This
Yeah.
is this is the honor of a lifetime. He loves working with Ringo. He learns
I mean,
learning,
yeah, yeah.
and there's so much joy in Greg to drum in general, just to have this as a living, and then to be sitting side by side with Ringo is such an honor. So, he's going to do this for as long as he can.
Yep.
I get that, and I understand it, but I also kind of think a little bit like Joe too. I mean, that lineup has to drastically change for me to go see that show again.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I've been
Needs to
seeing it since
rotate
the
some of it.
beginning, and I sometimes rationalize to myself, "Hey, you know what? Even if it's the same, um, every say 2 years. Last time I saw him was 2 years ago, I believe, in 2022. I say,
Mhm.
well, there's worst nights to spend an evening. I mean, it's a good time. What's wrong with seeing Ringo once every 2 years, even if it's the same old, same old? But for whatever reason, this time, maybe I had a feeling in my mind that something was going to happen. I don't know. Whatever it was, I opted not to get the tickets this time. And I remember being so excited every tour because he was going to go through his old phone book, and well, he always said he changed it up. Nothing against any of the players, believe me when I tell you, I really enjoyed them, and I've seen them many, many times. But I just, it would be exciting to get a change in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with you. It's just
Mhm.
no matter what Ringo does, I'll support him. But
Right.
he's 84 now. Is he going to
Yeah.
be that busy about changing the lineup around? He could do it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he's
Right.
very comfortable with these guys. And I think
Yeah.
that it's very important to him to be in a band where everybody gets along, where there's no egos. And apparently, he doesn't have that kind of a problem with this band.
Right. Right.
And for
Yeah.
him, the joy is playing and being out there in public. And in every show I've been to see Ringo, it's a near sellout. The only seats that are
Mhm.
empty are single seats. So that's got to tell him that what he's doing is working.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
also in part because he's a legend, and
Right. It's
how many
Ringo.
people haven't seen Ringo before? But you know,
Yeah.
if the proof is right there in the audience, if he's selling out everywhere he goes, the audience loves what he's doing.
And I
So
can't tell you how many people I know I've met over the years who say, maybe they're not big fans, but
yeah,
they went to one, and they always say that was a great show.
Right.
They
uh-huh.
always say that.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. Cool. Well, thank you, Ken, for sharing your experience of seeing Ringo Starr this latest tour.
Hmm.
And we do want to wish Ringo a speedy recovery. Hopefully, he's on the mend as we speak.
Yes.
Now, that being said, we are now going to get to our main topic, which is the theatrical experience of one hand clapping. Now, I want to ask you guys a question. I want you guys to be honest. Did you go back to the 2010 Band on the Run archive set to watch one hand clapping that was on the DVD?
No,
Because I didn't. I
I
didn't.
didn't.
Absolutely not.
You. I was a little scared there. I was
I
like,
want it to be fresh in the
no.
theater. I don't want it
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see it first.
exactly.
Well, the reason why I asked was because obviously we know about the visuals, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, let's just go around the horn here. Queen, we'll start with you. I mean, where did you travel? Did you have to travel far to see it? Was it relatively close?
It was relatively close. I was pleasantly surprised. A theater like 20 minutes from my house. So it's
Yeah,
really, really easy. And yeah, I was scared it was going to be at, just some like art theater downtown or something like downtown Chicago. But no, it was 20 minutes from the house, really, really easy.
great,
Pretty easy to get tickets. And I would say it wasn't sold out. But
right.
there were kind of single seats here and there, but pretty but I'd say three-quarters full.
Okay, Ken
Yeah.
Michaels.
same thing as kid. I'm very fortunate that it was 20 minutes from my house, my local
Mhm.
mall. I'm really happy about that, and I just wish I could say the same thing about Daytime Revolution. That's a struggle. Um, yeah, and I would say probably half the theater was full
Mhm.
when I went.
Okay. Yeah, I think we were a little less than half. The same here, 20 minutes. And there were more theaters in Michigan that did show it, so I was relatively happy about that. Joe, how about for you? Did you have to travel far to see it?
No, same thing. Same thing, relatively close, and a bunch of theaters showing it. I'm very lucky where I live, and the state of New York. There are always theaters like that. Even when I'm going to see a Daytime Revolution in the theater, there's one theater that I can get to. But as far as the capacity, the capacity, the amount of people in attendance. There were more than I thought there'd be. I didn't expect it to sell out, no, but it was half the theater. I guess, like Ken said, it was a good showing, a good crowd.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, Joe, going into this, I mean, what was your experience with one hand clapping? How familiar were you with the actual proposed TV show that never happened. How familiar were you with one hand clapping?
Well, I think in the 1980s, I got a bootleg VHS tape of it, and quality hasn't changed that much. But I'm not doing that as a complaint because I'm one of the people that doesn't understand what all the griping of the quality is, and we'll get to that
Mm,
later. But
right.
yeah, so I saw it in the 80s once or twice, and then when it came out, was it with Band on the Run? Was that the set that it
Yeah,
was in the archives?
2010. Yeah,
I watched
2010.
it one more time then, and I haven't seen it since. And I know you like to pad out the question, so I don't want to give it all away
Yeah,
here. Okay. But
yeah.
that's I hadn't seen it in a while, so I didn't remember exactly everything that was, it was in it. I
Mhm.
got mixed up with some things that are not in it that I was expecting to see, but my memory didn't
Right.
remember.
Right, because and you brought up a good point. I mean, we should mention that, okay, if you do get the one hand clapping 2 disc set, it's important to know that disc one is what is presented in the visuals of one hand clapping. Now, unfortunately, there are a few cuts, and then there's audio, talking and whatnot. We'll get into that. But if you're expecting to see bits and pieces of disc two of the the set that came with one hand clapping, then you would have been disappointed. Ken, my friend, how familiar with you with the one hand clapping as a film, not necessarily as a bootleg album or whatnot.
Well, I mean, kind of like Joe, I had it as a bootleg on video, and I watched it a few times. It's not something that blew me away to the point where I wanted to watch it over and over and over again. I think a lot of my appreciation for one hand clapping now has more to do with the fact that it came out on CD and the audio is fantastic and the performance really shines just from the audio.
Mhm.
But I can't say that it's been an essential watch for me because I wasn't all that impressed with the quality of the film and even the we'll probably get into this if it's made out to be a documentary and it's the the fact that each of the members of the band get to say something, which is a statement to itself, that part I find interesting, but I couldn't understand most of what they were saying in the documentary, which is a turnoff for
Right.
me. But it's more watch the band perform, watch Paul perform at the piano, and that's it. It's enjoyable. I always
Mhm.
loved on bootleg getting audio, especially of the piano stuff, which has been on different bootlegs. So,
Right.
but it's not something that I was so impressed with visually that I wanted to keep going back to it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Definitely, we should have probably had subtitles during the audio bits while people were
Yeah.
talking. But
Yes.
but Queen yourself, how familiar with one hand clapping were you?
Yeah, I never had a bootleg of it. I mean, I think I had some bits and pieces of like the piano stuff, as you guys were talking about, like the cabaret section and all. I think I had
Right.
some of that audio stuff on bootleg. And certainly when I was first learning about Paul's solo career and all, I remember reading about this. Reading about this
Mm.
special. And it was kind of this mysterious special that was shelved and it was always kind of written about in a few sentences in books, and that was about it. Now, I think hasn't some of this footage surfaced? Didn't it surface along the way in documentaries? I swear, I think I've seen
Well,
like
yeah,
these little bits.
you had bits and pieces. You saw the backyard sessions in
Yeah,
like
those
the
for sure.
McCartney years DVD, and
Yep,
I also think also in the Wingspan
yep.
documentary. I think you
Yeah.
saw some stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd seen little bits of that, and then of course in
Mm.
the 2010 box set, the Band on the Run box set, but that was about it. So other than that, I had certainly never seen this whole thing, and so that was about as much as I knew about it. So I was really excited, to finally see this whole thing because I had only known it in these bits and pieces and some of the audio, except of course
Right.
for what we got, earlier
Right.
this year, which I loved.
Yeah. Yeah, when we got the archive set, and I remember, watching it and just being really irritated by the visuals, which, again, we'll get
Yeah,
into that as well. And I don't even think I watched the whole thing.
I don't think I did
Just
either.
because it is tough because, and you can also watch it on YouTube, and which I had tried to do a few months back. And again, it's just so tough. It's like watching a bootleg of a bootleg of a bootleg of Let It Be, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
just you just can't watch it.
Yes,
You
bad
Well,
know, it's just
quality.
I
tough.
don't think
Yeah,
now, as
right,
good as they got it now. I mean, the best they
right,
could. But on the VHS tape I had originally, yeah, it was really more
yeah.
rough to me.
Right. Yeah, right. So, okay, let's get into the experience then. I mean, obviously we knew the audio. However, when going there, one of my biggest complaints about the experience was I felt that the audio was not as loud as maybe it could have been. And Queen, I was wondering, since you had just seen it, it's really fresh in your mind. Did
Yeah.
you think maybe the volume could have been turned up a little bit during this performance?
I thought me it was the sound was a little flatter than I was expecting. I mean, I
Mm,
think it could have been not only turned up a little bit, but I thought maybe the mix could have been a little better. Now, I guess we have to keep in mind this is 1974 and so forth. But I don't know. I thought the sound on the CD was a
mm,
lot better than that. I don't
right.
know. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if this was an issue with the film that I don't know. I mean, couldn't they have separated the film from the audio
Right.
and remixed it? I don't know. I mean,
Right.
I'm not an expert at
Well,
that.
see, right, and one of the things, if you watch the credits, if you see the 2024 credits, you do see Wingnut in the credits.
Hmm.
So that you would think then that they did go through some kind of restoration of some point, whether it was visual and or audio. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You take
So
now the
so yeah,
backyard
go ahead.
sessions I thought sounded a lot better. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah,
think
me
Right.
too.
Yes.
that
Yeah.
sound
Much
was
better.
way improved.
Good point. Good
So
point.
I
Good
thought,
point.
yeah, so I don't know what happened. I mean, it wasn't
Right.
terrible or anything, but yeah,
Right.
I thought it could have been boosted a bit.
Right, because I'm thinking, and what do you guys think too, that this was its own separate thing because obviously on the CD, yeah, it sounds, I think it sounds better. Obviously, there's dialogue in the film which you don't get on the CD, so
Yeah,
it might be its own complete different thing.
maybe.
Joe, how about you? Did you think maybe it could have been a little louder in your theater?
Well, that was my first complaint as I'm sitting there. I'm like, I was hoping the sound was going to really kind of blow me away. The sound, I don't know what the fault of the movie itself or just the theater didn't crank it. The theater could have made it louder, I guess. I seem to detect
Mhm.
at some point some surround feeling. There's more stuff going around,
I think I heard
especially
that too. Yeah.
yeah. I think what he did 1985, for
Yes.
example. But yeah, I was disappointed in the sound. One thing about the visual thing, the visual quality, we were sitting farther back. It wasn't like a huge theater, but we were sitting farther back. And sometimes with quality, the closer you sit at the front, the worse you'll see it. If you step back more, you don't see it as
Right.
many imperfections and everything. So that's another
Right.
thing I noticed. Sitting back, that helped the visuals somewhat. But
Okay.
yeah, the sound was disappointing. Yeah, except like Kit mentioned the backyard sessions, which I hope we'll talk about
Yeah.
more
Oh, we're
exclusively.
gonna get there.
Yeah,
We're gonna get there,
um,
my friend.
much better sound for that though.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
the all.
Yeah. Ken.
I hadn't really thought about it too much, but in listening to what Joe and Kit said, yeah, I kind of wish that the audio had been louder in the theater, since it's very overpowering when you listen to the CDs. Was kind of hoping that it would be more like that. And considering what you just said, Tom, about Peter Jackson, that he was involved in this, I wish we could have a discussion so we would
Yeah.
know visually what he did do or what can't be done, what can be done. Um, since you noted that there are times when members of the band talked while the music was on, that's probably something you couldn't take out.
Mhm.
Mm,
Maybe
Maybe.
that was part of the entire audio and it was already
right.
the audio track. Although who knows with today's technology, you're able to do it with audio,
Right.
separating
Mhm.
everything. So
Right.
the kind of thing I would like to get answers about where that's concerned. What could have been done to improve the video and the audio from the video. Um,
Right.
yeah, but I didn't experience any kind of a surround sound thing. But I was trying to be glued to the screen and the visual, even though I wasn't
Right.
crazy about the visual. And it was just nice to hear the stuff that was performed there, the same performances that I heard on the CD, and
Hmm.
to watch it as it's happening, while they're performing it. But yeah, I wish it was louder.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think I would have enjoyed
Well,
it even more.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it sounds like Darren needs to send an email to somebody and
Yeah.
see what because you would think that restoring video would be a little different than restoring film. So I would really be curious to see the whole process, if any, in restoring this because yeah, you do see a little difference between what you see on the I'm sure on the DVD of the 2010 release as opposed to what we see now. Plus, go ahead, Ken.
What I can tell you is what Alan Kozin said in our show about this the other day, which is when this was recorded, it was done on a pneumatic
Pneumatic.
water
Yep.
recorder. And the
Yep.
problem with that is that you can't edit it.
Mm,
So you have to
Oh.
transfer that to film, do the editing on film, and then go
mm,
back to pneumatic.
mm,
So when you're doing that, there's you're going to have uh, picture quality loss at the same
yeah.
time. So, and I think, yeah, Alan said that David Litchfield, who was the director before he
Right.
passed away, which was recently, that he
Mm.
found the original. Now, I'm wondering if he could have just taken the original and maybe that would have looked better than this.
Mm,
I don't know,
Mm. Mhm.
because
right.
you
Right.
have
Can I?
whatever
Sorry, I don't
Peter
want to interrupt.
Jackson's team could do with it now
Right.
compared to having the original. But then what good is it if you can't edit it? You still have to, there has to
Right.
be kind of transfer. But then again, with today's technology, there's so many changes being made. I can't keep track of
Right.
Peter
Exactly.
could tell you, but
Right. Joe,
Can,
you want to say
can I
something?
talk more about the video, or are you
Yeah,
going to
let's
save
let's
that?
okay, let's jump into the
Yeah.
video now. Yeah, let's
Well,
go
Mhm.
ahead,
Yeah.
Joe.
what I
We'll
wanted to
start with you.
say is that Tom and I, we both love movies and we collect Blu-rays, and
Yep.
they have 4K now and all this. And I hear so many people on my channel, complaining about the quality of this. And I understand we're spoiled. I really believe it that we
Mhm.
want everything to look pretty pristine. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. I'm not saying it has to be 4K, but this is rough. Of course it's
Right.
rough, but much like the Lost Honeymooners, if I could throw them in episodes that were the kinescopes, taking off the TV monitors and things like that. We're
Mm,
lucky to have it, period, that it exists
Mhm.
at all. And to me, it's mostly about the music, I think,
yeah.
more than the visual. I mean, you could see, I know I could see them playing the guitars and Linda on the keyboard. I know, oh, that's Linda, that's Jimmy, that's Jeff. I'm not having any trouble deciphering
Right.
who they are. Just doesn't look like it's a brand new digitally 4K, whatever, however many P movies they have. So, while I love beautiful quality like that, any kind of restoration pictures I'll take. I'm fine with it. I mean, I can see what's going on, and I don't mean I really got to squint either. You know,
Right.
I
All
might
right.
have had to do
Queen,
that.
Queen, what did you think about the visuals, the visual experience?
Yeah, I mean, I expected it to be not that great because I had heard, enough people talking about it. It's from 1974. I mean, I definitely expected that it was not going to be, of crystal clear quality. And I think you made a good point, Joe. And it was pure, luck, if you want to call it that. That my friends, Tina Kukla and Karen Duhai, that I saw it with, some of you know them. When we went to see it, we ended up not being able to get seats that were not super close. We had to get them in the back, and thank God, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that was way better. I think,
Yes.
yeah, definitely that that I think the farther back you're sitting from it, the much better it is. Because you don't see every single imperfection that way. But yes, you still see it. You see some glitches. You see some lines, and it was really interesting at the very beginning of the film. I forget if you see Paul or somebody sitting there first, and somebody walks by and they're practically translucent. It's like,
Mm,
wow,
right.
this is some old tape, you know. Uh, so it's you really know. I was a little surprised that they couldn't restore it a bit more. If I don't know if Peter Jackson was involved in restoring the film at all, because I mean, hey, look what he did with Get Back. I mean, that's
Right.
what he did there. But was it a deal killer for me? No. I mean, it's not that big a deal for me that it really got in the
Right.
way with enjoying the film. I
Right.
mean, it's
Right.
it's not like, I wouldn't say, oh my God, don't go see this film because the visual quality. Because
Right.
it also shows what a time capsule it is. That and the clothes.
Right.
But we can get to that later. But
We're gonna get to that next. Yes.
okay, good, excellent.
Yeah.
But seriously, it does kind of it's kind of underscoring to the time period. But yeah, it's not great quality film, but it doesn't get in the way of
Right.
enjoying it.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, us four, I mean, we knew going in that
Mhm.
we were expecting this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Ken, I'm sure you were expecting the visuals to not be, what visuals are, what let's say like Get Back. What the Queen said, like what Peter Jackson did with Get Back. So before we start giving stuff away, what was added, what was taken out, Ken, just talk a little bit about your viewing experience. What did you think of the visuals?
Um, I enjoyed the film because it's Paul McCartney and the band, and I love the music. And like
Right.
Kit said, nothing in the way of that. But it did kind of bother me. I was about one third from the front of the room there watching this film. What I noticed was that there are certain moments, especially early on, when say Paul is in the front of the camera and you see him really clear, and whoever who's behind him
Mm,
is all blurry.
right.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that's the way that it was done for effect with this video
Mm,
camera at the time, but
It could
that
be.
found to be kind of
mm,
disturbing for
There
me.
were a
right.
couple of points where I think it was
Right.
intentional. There were like
Yeah.
one or two
Mm,
points. Yeah.
okay.
But
Okay.
I
All
also
right.
went into this film with more knowledge about it and the history of it,
Right.
having
Yeah.
spoken to Alan Kozin and Adrian Sinclair.
Right.
And I think that it's
Right.
worth noting that when Paul did this, there was never any intention of this to come out.
Mhm.
It was really done just to make a film of the band, to see them with the new lineup, to see how good they looked on camera, to see if there's any chemistry, just to see how they looked visually. And then somewhere along the line, they got into this idea of maybe it could be a documentary.
Right.
We'll put it on the BBC. And the BBC was offered it and they turned it down because
Yeah.
of the picture quality. They said, "Are you kidding? We can't show this." So, there was never any intention on Paul's part for it to ever be in a movie theater 50 years later. So, knowing that, I wasn't expecting this to be a perfect quality picture. And before we found out that it was going to be in theaters, they gave a sneak preview online of one of the songs. It might have been Junior's Farm or something, and it looked the same as what I've seen before. I didn't really see that
Mm-hmm.
big a difference in the quality. But for
Right.
me, it's still a thrill to watch the band perform and, to see Paul at the piano. Well, I could watch that probably more so than the band because I love the
Right.
songs that he did there. And you don't see too much of him at the piano, seeing the handwork at the piano.
Yeah.
That
Right.
I loved a lot. You see him for a while when he tours doing a few songs on the piano, but you never really get to see the handwork of it.
Right. Right.
But
All right.
no matter what, I still enjoyed it. But I went into it knowing that it wasn't going to be a great quality picture.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah, I think we all did. Okay, let's get into the stuff we saw in there, and let's talk about our favorite bits. And then somebody can also bring up what we saw that's not on the CD, right? So Joe, let's start with you. I mean, what were some of your favorite bits in this show?
Well, I say it's been a while since I've seen it, but I've heard the CD. But what stood out to me, first of all, I love saying this, and I know it brings smiles to everybody's faces.
Right.
um, the first part, maybe not. I mean, I was never a big Soily fan, but I am with this. To me, that's like maybe the highlight for me in a
Mm,
way of this is to get a real good version of Soily, kind of like if you want to say studio Soily, more close to that. I really love that rocker on this. I didn't think it was that big a deal. We talked about this many times. I know for Ken it was amazing, originally in the rock show and thing. But that, of course, and just some favorites. I would say like Jet, Band on the Run, 1985. I like Paul at the piano. The bits with Paul at the piano. Live and Let Die. I'm naming the whole, but
right.
there were some favorite parts. Um, I don't know. Some
We're
disappointments.
gonna do no, we're gonna do that next. Let's just stick
All
with
right, so and I'll
the
tell you, I want
highlights
to also
first.
mention that there was some applause. I mean, for the most part, people did not applaud after. I thought they
Mm,
might. However,
mm,
there was some applause at my theater for certain songs. The biggest applause of the show was "Live and Let Die" at the end.
Mm.
yeah,
I found there was saying "Bravo, Bravo," that.
right.
Uh, and even "My Love," you don't hear "My Love" in its entirety in there,
Oh,
you know.
Right.
But there was a little bit. There was applause for that. Those were the two biggest applause songs I was in
Awesome.
my theater.
Okay. Queen, let's just keep the backyard sessions. We'll do that last. But let's
right.
just talk about the first part.
Well, obviously, I mean, starting out with Jet and Soily, I mean that 1-2 punch, and it
Mm,
really, it was great on CD. But I've got to say, seeing them do those songs just added another dimension to me. I mean, seeing Jeff Britton, playing them.
right.
I mean, he was a beast. In those, particularly the harder rock songs, at one point, and Tina told me I have permission to quote her on this. She she those of you who go to the Chicago Fest, I'm sure you've met her. She leaned over to me and she said, "This is like a disciplined punk band." Like she said, and I really like that because really, I mean, Jeff. I mean, he looked kind of like a punk musician in some of these scenes, but it was true. I mean, they just were rocking so hard, particularly on Soily, but even Jet to a point. I mean, they just sounded like a tight band this point. So really like that. Even maybe I'm amazed, even though there was a voiceover at one point, which was irritating.
Right.
Coming
But
up.
yep, shut up. But and yes, I know we've heard this on CD, but again, seeing it, seeing them perform it, I think lent another dimension to the songs to me. Paul let out, I mean, he was just in top vocal form at this point.
Mm.
Mm,
He let out a run. He did a vocal run toward the end of the song that out loud I almost went, woo! I mean,
yeah.
he just did this run. I mean, he was just top of his game. It was incredible. Love that, as he put it, the cabaret section.
Mm,
That section was great. As you said, Ken, close up on his hands playing piano. Yeah, that's true. You don't get to see that very much with
Right.
him. And so seeing that up close, seeing him perform Suicide, I was a real treat. And hearing him talk about growing up. I thought it was odd though that he was calling When I'm 64 cabaret, but okay. I was saying it's music hall, Paul, but that's okay.
Mm.
Um, and hearing him do that and Let's Love and I'll Give You a Ring, that was a treat
Yeah, That was
we gonna
good.
do that. That was
Yes.
a real treat to see
Right.
that. And yes, Live and Let Die. 1985 was fun, except I thought it was odd that the director chose to show the second half that close up, his face like the
Oh,
whole time.
yeah.
I thought that was odd, and you knew this was the 70s when he was singing with one hand and the cigarette in the other.
Striking the other.
I'm like, yeah, this is the 70s, all right. But yeah, and there were, and we can talk about this later if we want. Yeah, some interesting directorial choices, I
Mm.
thought. But as Ken, you saying that this wasn't really meant to be a documentary in the first place, maybe I should cut him a little slack about
Right.
some of this. Because some of the extreme close-ups and showing like Linda at times when Paul is singing, and
Right.
I'm like, why the hell is he showing her doing nothing and Paul singing, things like that.
Hmm.
But that aside, I'd say those are some of my favorite
Excellent.
moments. Yeah.
Cool. So we should note that since you did say suicide, that was one of the big omissions from
Yeah.
the first disc, which it is not on the CD. However, it is in the film Suicide.
Mhm.
And I did like how he did talk about that whole situation where if he gets older, what was he going to do because in his 30s we're so
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah.
But Ken, what were some of the highlights for you?
Well, I would repeat a lot of what Kit said. Certainly
Yeah.
starting off the film with Jet and Soily. I love how they were discussing the ending of Soily, how it would go, and Paul would sing
Mm,
those notes, da 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 da. He kept on doing that. I found that interesting, working that part out. And certainly, I was going to say the same thing about Paul's vocals. They were on fire.
Mhm.
Sometimes I look at this almost the same way that I look at the Get Back video, because Paul was so creative then and having so many ideas, and his voice was amazing during the Get Back
Mhm.
period there. His he was in total command of his voice when he needed it to be high, when it needed to be strong, whatever he wanted to do, his voice was just perfect. And it was that way throughout this entire film. He was in top-notch form vocally. And yeah, the whole piano bit, I'll give you a ring, like you said, it's nice to hear that.
mm,
And to know, and we've known for a while, that that dates back to 1974.
Yeah.
All of You, the song All of You, which is very cabaret.
Yeah.
It's like,
mhm.
that's a song that, why didn't he record it and
Yes.
release it? What's wrong with you? It's good enough for that to be kind of like you gave me the answer was a year later. It's that kind of vein. Um, so I love the whole piano part. Um, I liked seeing, and here, see, nothing is ever clear cut in its explanation. It was it going to be a documentary? Was it really meant to be on television? If the intent from the very beginning was that it wasn't, it was going to be like a film that Paul would make for himself that he could look at, why bother going through the trouble of hiring an entire orchestra
Yeah.
to back you up on My Love and Live and Let Die?
Good point.
You're right.
And when you watch Live and Let Die, and yeah, it was Live and Let Die, and there's some musicians there who are eating while they're supposed to be playing, and one is reading a newspaper, and I'm getting the feeling like it's the A Day in the Life video with the orchestra.
Right.
I like the
So, but
one rolling his own cigarette. Yeah.
yeah,
I
how
thought
could
I
I have forgotten
spotted Mike Nesmith in there somewhere.
Well, I do believe when we had Adrian Sinclair on to talk about one hand clapping, I do believe that came, I think a little later on down the line, um, towards the end of the filming of what became one hand clapping. As like if you see like the trademark at the end, you see 1975. As we learned, that's when during the Venus and Mars sessions, that's when he added the orchestration to the New Orleans orchestration at the end onto Babyface.
right.
So I think we got to take that into consideration too. So yeah, maybe he was still thinking as the process continued. Maybe he was thinking, okay, maybe we can do something with this and turn it into a TV show if possible.
Okay.
Can I point out one thing that I thought was very,
Yes.
I had to mention this in things we said today as well. There's a glaring mistake in this documentary, which is when Paul's at the piano and he's talking about writing a song for Peggy Lee. He's going to meet with
Oh
her.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah.
then,
Right.
but they take that bit of Paul saying
Mhm.
that, and instead of placing it before Let's Love, which is the song that he wrote for Peggy
Right.
Lee, they put it right
Yeah.
before I'll Give You a Ring.
Okay,
Mhm.
I thought I noticed that too, and I
You
thought,
know,
huh?
Mhm.
that's not
Wrong
proper
song.
placement. And I guess I don't know if the audio that from the commentary there from Paul can't be removed from the overall audio. I don't know. I don't know why they
Mhm.
couldn't move that, because it's a definite error right there.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. Okay, let's start let's go and talk about things that, maybe were like head scratchers or something. Well, I mean, Ken, since you just spoke, let's start off with you. What were some of the things that were like, what the hell is this? If
No, I
any.
think what I mentioned earlier about not being able to understand the other people in the band when they were talking,
Right.
the one that I really understood was Paul. I even had
Mm,
trouble understanding some of what Linda was saying. Maybe it was the quality of the audio. I don't know what it was. Um,
mm,
there is that. Uh, just the overall idea of, is this a band or is it not a band? It's important that all the members got to talk, but yet half the film is Paul alone at the piano.
right.
So I love the fact that you get to see the band play and rehearse together and having fun, but why so much time of Paul alone? And don't get me wrong,
Well,
that's my favorite part of it. But if you're trying to present Wings as a band, why is there so much time of Paul just being at the piano?
right. I mean, the same can be said for the James Paul McCartney special. I mean, did he have to do gotta sing, gotta dance, number? Or I
Uh-huh.
mean, because there was bits, the acoustic bit, in James Paul McCartney is just him and with Linda taking pictures. So
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing in a way.
good point.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
point. So those
Joe?
kind of things,
Go,
Bob.
go, go ahead, Ken. Yeah.
That's
Joe?
about it, really.
Mm,
Well, yeah, the one thing that really, I guess, disappointed me was the voiceovers, just first interrupting the songs, but that's part of how it
mm,
is. But I really wish that we could just. They wish they didn't put those in there. Not because I'm not interested. As a fan, you want to hear what they have to say. The Paul and everybody, the band members and things. But I don't know. At this point in my life, I guess I just wanted to hear just the
mm.
music. And as Ken said, and we all kind of agree, I couldn't understand what the heck they were saying. I couldn't understand. Uh, I think Linda I was okay with, but I think Denny especially I
Denny
couldn't
was the
understand Denny,
toughest.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Denny was
and I think
definitely the
Jeff
toughest.
maybe Jeff Britton,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or Jimmy even. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
it
mean,
just was rough to understand
right.
understand them, and I rather
Right.
they didn't interrupt the songs with that, with that. Another thing that doesn't really fit in a way is because I hadn't seen it in a while. All right. I have memories of Junior's Farm, with them doing it, the band doing it, and I'm saying I think that was used as a promotional thing, a promotional performance, a video or something, promo maybe or something. Because I'm saying, oh, where's Junior's Farm? Well, I guess it's not in here. I don't remember.
No.
I didn't remember correctly. So that was a disappointment, but that's not their fault. I just
Right.
I would have liked to have seen that in there, but
Well, yeah,
uh,
I get you.
you know,
That Junior's Farm that you probably are thinking of is the one that's from Top of the Pops. Was where they recorded that
they're in the
the
studio.
video. Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah, during the Top of the Pops
Oh,
broadcast.
okay,
Um,
because
but
get it
yeah,
mixed up sometimes, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I guess it wasn't from there. Then what it was.
right.
Um, I should have mentioned before. On the positive side that I forgot, I did enjoy seeing Linda, having some fun playing her parts and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I thought she sounded great. I've always said that I love Linda's, voice, what she offered to Wings, and I thought it was on display nicely there. Her really, giving it her all, and I liked her in it. Back to the positive.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, yeah, Denny was complete it was really tough to understand, but I did, when he was talking about Paul, leaving the Beatles, and he did say something. I was like, where he understood Paul and what he was going through, because
Well,
he did experience success, and then, had to start all over again. So he kind of did, appreciate what Paul was going through. Another little cool bit, with Jimmy talking, I guess I should have said this during the positive stuff, was you did understand when he was saying, well, he wants to make something that he can be proud of, and when working with Paul, and I thought that was pretty cool too. But Queen, what were some of the bits that stuck out for you that you did care for?
Yeah, I mean the voiceovers, they wouldn't have been so annoying if, first of all, as we've all been saying, they were hard to understand. But also I just felt like, they were sort of a missed opportunity, because other than a couple of the things you guys just said, most of the questions seemed kind of, I mean, you could only guess what the questions were, but whoever was asking them must have asked some pretty pointless kinds of questions, because I felt like what you could pick up, the answers, I mean, they were just sort of meandering thoughts. And you just thought, who cares? I want to hear about, what are your experiences? I mean, maybe hear about, when did you first learn to play the instrument? How did you start working with Paul? What are you hoping to contribute to the band? Sometimes their thoughts were just kind of meandering. I
Right.
mean, and you just
Oh,
thought,
I wonder why.
yeah, exactly. Well, there's that. That didn't help. But you're just like, you just thought this adds nothing to
Right.
this at all. I mean, Paul, I mean, even Linda at one point, I used to skip school, and I would just go to,
Right.
and I'm like, yeah, fascinating. Can you say, because what I would have liked to have heard was, because you could tell, I think in this, she had really gained some confidence by this time. You
Yes.
could really tell
Right.
that.
Yeah.
That's what I
During
would have.
Band on the Run, you
Yeah,
can, they show her playing.
exactly. That's what I would have liked to have heard more about, is,
Right.
like you were talking about, how have you felt, since you started out where, you really had never been in a band
Right.
before, and now you're at this point, how are you feeling at this point? How have you gained confidence? That would have been interesting. But, a lot of the questions just seem, whatever they were asked, were
Right.
just pointless, so that's a missed opportunity
Yeah.
right there. It
Yeah.
was cool though. I was thinking, hearing Jimmy McAuliffe though, I'm like, I've never really heard him speak very much. So that was kind of cool to hear him, that was kind of a bonus. Wish, again, he could have been
Right.
asked better questions. As I mentioned, some of the camera shots were really awkward. And I was just, as you were talking, I was flipping through my notes trying to find which one. I don't know if it was during Band on the Run. It was, there was one part where, Paul was, was singing, but, and this may have been one of the times you mentioned where like they'd focus on one person and the other would be out, be out of focus prominently. I mean, it was
Mm.
like they would focus on, Paul was the one who was singing, but they'd focus on Linda
She's in the foreground,
in the
like front.
Right.
foreground,
Paul's
and
in
Right.
Paul's in the background, but Linda's mainly in the picture, and she's not doing anything. She's just kind of standing around waiting for her part. You're like, why? What was the point of this? I mean,
Right.
and even at the end of the film, toward the end, when Paul's finishing 1985, and then all of a sudden it awkwardly changes to
Yeah.
babyface. I
Right.
mean, really awkward. You're just, what? So there's
Right.
some
Right.
really clunky editing, clunky shots. As I said, why zoom in on Paul's face that closely for almost all of
Right.
1985? I mean, you could see his dental work. I mean, it's like, whoa,
Yes.
back up
Yeah.
there, buddy. I mean, so there.
Necessary. Can I just say, why was it necessary to cut from Paul at the piano doing 1985 to hear him sing
Right.
over the recorded version of
Over
1985?
the recorded
Yes,
version. Right.
yes,
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. I mean,
Yeah.
because it started out great. I
Yeah,
mean, I could have heard him do
Mm.
the whole thing on
yeah.
just the
Right.
piano. Would have been terrific too. But
Yeah.
why not switch to him playing it live with the band? I mean, so just some odd choices
Right.
here and there. I
Yeah.
mean, again,
One.
not a deal
Yeah.
breaker, but
Right. One thing I was baffled on was, okay, we see they're doing Bluebird. You see Howie Casey, and this is a less than a year removed from him doing his one take, and then he's still trying. He needs to, you know, get reassurance from Paul how the notes and going from A to F or E or whatever it is. I was like, you just played this like 6 months ago, you know.
Yeah, that was
So
interesting.
yeah, but it was cool to see Howie Casey in there too, and then just knocking it out of the park, for Bluebird. But yeah, again, all right, let's talk about the shortest member of Wings at that moment in time, and that is Jeff Britton. Finally getting to see Jeff, and it was nice that we should add during the introduction. It was nice to see Paul has some nice words to say about Jimmy and Jeff, and saying that he was a good rock drummer. Ken, just seeing Jeff throughout this whole thing in the karate suit and all this stuff, and doing some moves and stuff like that. What'd you think of Jeff throughout the whole show?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to mention that that introduction that you just spoke about from Paul was very poignant in a way, because even
Right.
though, we're aware of it, there's 5 people in the band and only 2 of them are still with us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah.
And, just to mention the 3 that have passed on, it was like, it's shocking still,
Right.
to know, Denny Lane just passed away. But anyway, yeah, like Kit was saying, I think that Jeff, it was nice to see him playing the drums. He was really ferocious on it. He was a good rock drummer right there. And it was weird to see him in the karate suit and doing his steps, but he was a big karate expert. And, hopefully we're going to learn what happened and why he left the band, and who he didn't get along with, or whatever. But, it's nice to finally see some representation of Jeff Britton in some
Right.
way in the Wing story. So
Right.
yeah, I enjoyed watching it. I just wish that you could learn more about the band members, like you were saying, Kit. Could have been intelligent questions being asked to
Right.
them, and that we could understand them a little bit better. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, by the way, I just wanted to say your comment about Linda was very interesting, because the very beginning of Wings, the main reason she was in Wings is because Paul wanted her there. She didn't really want to be in the band. At this point, it seems like she's getting into it when you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really is feeling like a
Right.
member,
Yeah.
to the point where she's even making like suggestions when they're having a talk.
Yes.
And if that was Yoko, everybody'd be saying, "How dare she
Right.
make suggestions?"
Yeah. But yeah, those are my thoughts about Jeff Britton. I wish there was
Yeah.
more on the band to make it more of a
Right.
Right.
Right, and you just brought up, because there is that one scene where they're in the studio or the council or whatever, where they're talking about how Jeff's either coming in too late or too early, and Linda's involved in that conversation as well. And
Yeah.
here's like the least qualified person to maybe say those things, to Jeff, but I guess that shows her progress
right.
as becoming a professional musician. Jeff Britton throughout the show.
Well, before I say that, I wanted to think of another Linda moment to bounce kind of off what Ken was saying. There's a moment, I don't remember what song it was. It might have been Band on the Run, when she's playing, the keys in
All
there,
right.
and
Yeah.
Paul looks over at her in approval and smiles.
Yeah. I
That
remember that.
he was impressed by that she did great. I love that moment. That's a favorite moment.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
As far as Jeff, I mean, I'm glad to be able to see him, even if it's briefly. We get to see him. Seems like, I mean, I'm not a musician. Seems like a very good drummer to me. Very tight and strong.
Right.
As far as the karate outfit goes, that was threw me a little bit. However, in 1974, I mean, I remember very well. Everybody was kung fu fighting and stuff like that. The kung fu TV show. And I love that song by Carl Douglas.
Kung
People think
Fooey.
it's
Carl
ridiculous.
Douglas.
I mean, I love that song too. So I'm not surprised. What's surprised in a way at that time, that was in there. And I guess that's all I've got to say about that one.
All right, Queen.
Yeah, thanks for putting that song in my head, Joe.
Yeah.
In my head all night.
I'm 12
Yeah.
years old again when I hear that.
Yeah, first of all, yeah, sweet moves, Jeff. Those were some
Yeah.
sweet karate moves. Yeah, that was
You should have met Elvis.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, did not expect that in the film. And yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, he really he was a solid rock drummer, and as I said, almost had this like punk. Punk aspect to him. I mean, particularly on the harder rock stuff. Yeah, I mean, there were times, in fact, like particularly when they were, they showed the bit of My Love in there. Um, you could sort of tell. I don't know if he enjoyed Jeff doing the slower stuff as much. I mean, he seemed a little bored. He looked a little bored doing My Love. At least I thought he did. I just think you could tell he was kind of holding back a bit. I thought. So I kind of wonder if he ultimately, in fact, I talked with Karen and Tina about this over dinner, saying maybe he ultimately wouldn't have been a great fit for Wings in the long run because, you know, to play with Paul McCartney, you've got to be well rounded because you really saw this in this special. I mean, he was all over the place, from hard rock to ballads, to cabaret to reggae. I mean, he was all over the place in this, and you've got to be versatile. You've got to
Right.
be able to play all these different styles. And if you're not comfortable doing all these things, you shouldn't be in Wings and you shouldn't be playing with Paul. And so I don't know. I mean, he's, as I said, great rock drummer, as Paul said at the beginning. But if, you're not equally comfortable playing all these different styles,
Right.
you might not be the right one for the band in the long run.
Good point. So as you say, from the beginning now towards the end, we run through some credits, but don't get off your seats just yet because there's a little
I love
extra
that, by
bit.
the way.
And
I know.
yes, and then we get another little intro from Paul, talking about the setup and going outside, and doing his little backyard sessions, if you will. Joe. Um, we get the backyard sessions, but if you were the one person that got that deluxe one hand clapping on McCartney.com and got that little 7-inch 45, you're probably expecting something different than what we got. But Joe, we'll start with you. Talk about the backyard sessions and your thoughts on that.
Well, I didn't get that 45.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I wish I had, but I
Yeah.
didn't. Um, well, I'm glad I went first in a way because something I want to say
Yeah.
here that I'll get to. First of all, Paul, he looks great. He sounds great. His acoustic guitar playing is great. That's Paul McCartney. That's the genius, the icon in that moment, right? Something that I really meant to say in a video that I made on my channel that I forgot to say when sometimes it happens unless you write it down. I want to say it here. When he was doing songs by like Chuck Berry, like Buddy Holly, Eddie Cochran, doing 20 Flight Rock, I started thinking, John Lennon, when he always says I recognized this, he had talent, and he asked him to join his group, the Quarrymen. I'm saying Lennon perceived this, saw this talent in him. It's there, it's just there. I'm so excited about it. I just loved it. I never saw that in its entirety, you know. And I just was blown away by it. I didn't even mind that it wasn't all original. He was doing like, other stuff. I'd seen some of Peggy Sue, I'm Gonna Love You Too. I've seen him do a
Right.
little bit here and there, but I never saw the whole thing. And I just kept thinking about like, well, what was it like for John when Paul was playing like 20 Flight Rock and showing him what he could do when he says, well, I want this guy in my band. This guy's got talent. That's what I kept
Yeah.
thinking. It was just a great way to cap this off. And I think had it just been one hand clapping, and they didn't put this on. I don't think it would have been for me as fulfilling as of an experience. And I know one of the guys I was with, a friend I was with, he had the same feeling. You know, kind of. Well, at first it elongated the experience, made it a little longer,
Right.
but it really was a great finale. And having Paul, you know, introduce it like, you know, in 2024 now and say, hold on, don't go, stay in your seats. Because I was thinking to myself, you know, I always worry like that. I think, I wonder if people are going to know. You always see people, you've seen a movie in a theater or something, you know, it's not over yet or something. Maybe you've seen it already. And then they all start putting their coats on or getting up and say, wait a minute, it's not. Are they going to know there's more coming when the credits are rolling with Babyface and everything? So we didn't talk too much about Paul. A little bit we got into it, him introducing this in
Right.
2024 now as he is now, and Ken covered a lot of ground there, and you know, remembering people that were lost and everything. I love that they did that. I didn't expect that. Paul coming in and introducing it, then coming back introducing the backyard tape. So
Right.
to me, that was the price of admission alone for the whole thing.
Right. Ken?
I loved every second of it. You know, I've
Mm.
certainly heard the bootleg on audio for a long time, and it's one of my most treasured bootlegs because the performances are wonderful of every single song. And when it comes to 50s rock and roll, Paul is always in his element. He always sounds so comfortable doing Buddy Holly or Elvis Presley or, you know, Bebopalula or any of those songs. And you know, it's great to see this all on camera, but you know, I can't help thinking that it's not the whole thing.
It's
And
not.
No,
I
it
know it's
isn't.
not.
Yeah, I
And
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom, for spoiling that for me.
I've said this many times. Paul does everything in piecemeal, and it drives me crazy. And even when it comes to the stuff that's the songs from One Hand Clapping, he puts some of it on Band on the Run on the box set.
Yeah.
He puts some of it on Venus and Mars. Why
Mhm.
don't you just put it all out all at once on one thing? And even on the double CD that came out, there's more stuff than
Yep.
what there is. I'm glad that we have that. But you know, my favorite moments from the backyard tapes is when he does these two Elvis Presley songs. He does Loving You,
Right.
he does We're Gonna Move.
Oh,
Some
wow.
people one some people call it there's a leak in this old building.
Yeah.
That's We're Gonna
Love
Move.
Me Tender.
It's a great performance from Paul. Why isn't that in this? Why isn't this part of the visual? You got these other songs at what was it, 5 they put here?
Yeah.
5, I think there were 9 or 10 songs altogether. Why didn't you include the
Right.
whole?
Could it
Yeah.
be a rights issue?
Mhm.
I don't know. But
Could be.
but it's great to see Blackpool, him performing
Yeah.
Black. We got 20 Flat Rock, Peggy Sue, I'm Gonna Love You Too, and Sweet Little 16, which is not part of the vinyl release.
Right. No, correct.
You
Correct.
know, so and it's great, you know. It's
Mm.
kind of like what you said, Joe. If John was watching Paul doing all these songs, it's like get him in the band.
Mhm.
But and
Yeah.
his voice is just so perfect.
Yep.
And I
Right.
just wish that some of the songs, he really did shorter versions of the songs. They're like a minute and a half instead of 2.5 minutes or something.
Right.
But these sounded great on all of them. And it really was a nice bonus to have at the end of watching One Hand Clapping. But, you know, I'm greedy. I want all of it.
Yes. Well, and to that point, you know, we're watching it starts and it's Blackpool. Okay, great. That's how the 7-inch 45 starts. It's
Yeah.
Blackpool. And I'm going, great. Here comes Heart of the Country, right? Here comes Sally G, right? No.
Oh, man. Forget. You're killing it for me.
See, on
That stunk.
the backyard tape, Sally G was never in there, as far as I
Mhm.
know. I only knew about
Right.
Sally G when the CD came out this year.
Mhm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were different
So,
takes of Blackbird, you know.
yeah, right. So, but you know, 20 Flight Rock, you know, he always does that song
Yeah.
perfectly. And like I said before, he does it so well you almost think that it's his own song, right?
Mhm.
But Queen, go on to you. I mean, backyard sessions.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I expected that was coming because I, you know, had
Mm.
heard about it. But it was such a treat to see. Very nicely restored. The sound, as I mentioned at the top of the show, was fantastic. I mean, even better than, in fact, One Hand
Yeah.
Clapping. Um, I mean, it just, and I really loved the camera angles, that it wasn't just him straight on, but they even had above,
Mhm.
which I thought
Right.
was an interesting
Right.
perspective.
Yep.
So you could really see him playing, and I mean, I particularly love the Buddy Holly stuff because
Mm,
Yeah.
we know how much he worshipped Buddy
right.
Holly. I mean, and you really hear it here. Boy, he has Buddy Holly's mannerisms, that hiccuping vocal. He had it down perfectly. I mean, he
Mm.
really did. And you can just hear in his voice and the way he plays, I mean, just how much affection and
Mm,
respect that he had for him. I mean, you just absolutely hear it. And 20 Flight Rock, I mean, it's always
right.
it's always
Yeah.
fun to hear him play that song. And of course, we know how much it means to him. It has such great meaning. And yeah, Blackpool, and of course Chuck Berry had such a great role in his life. And so, I mean, yes, that's my only complaint. If only this were longer. I mean, this could have gone on much longer.
Right.
But and you just don't get to see Paul in this kind of setting very much. Just him and his guitar, just sitting playing in this intimate setting. And it was just a treat. I'm so glad that this was added on. And I will agree with you, Joe. I think it was a great idea to have Paul add these, these updated parts, the introduction to explain what one hand
Mm-hmm.
clapping, what this was, and then to add this bit at the end and to add the introduction to explain this part as well, and to, bring it up to date. So that was, this was a treat. As you said, this was worth the price of admission alone.
I agree. I agree
Mhm.
100%. So,
Mhm.
all right. Well, if there's not anything else to add, that's our look at one hand clapping, the theatrical experience. I hope you all saw it. I hope you all had a good time. Ken, you want to say one more thing?
Yeah, I was just thinking of two things. First
Yeah.
of all, when it came to the backyard tapes, one thing that I didn't even expect at all is that they had these illustrations where it
Yeah.
looked like a
Mm,
window and
yeah.
you're looking
Right.
outside the
Right.
window, then going right to Paul.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that was a nice little touch.
Hmm.
Mm,
Even though it's probably never going to happen, one of the biggest dreams that some Beatle fans like myself wish for Paul McCartney was that he would do a tour where it's him alone.
Hmm.
uh,
You
mm,
see him at the piano, no one else. You see him at the acoustic guitar, no one else. Those are really special moments, but you're always used to seeing him with Wings or the various bands that he's had through the years. So when you see something like this, especially one hand clapping, Paul at the piano, then you got Paul alone on the acoustic guitar, it makes you kind of yearn for that even more. And
right.
you talk about Buddy Holly, hearing Paul do Elvis Presley,
Yeah.
you got to hear,
He
uh,
does Love Me, he said he does.
yeah, yeah, love,
Originally,
yeah, not Love Me Tender, Love Me.
no, Love Me. Original on the
Oh
original
no, no, no,
tape.
no, 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 I'm sorry. He does Loving You.
Oh, Loving You. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
all close in title, but
Yeah.
and We're Gonna Move, which is
Yeah.
tremendous.
That's great. I would love that. I love that song. It's not a popular Elvis song, but it's from the movie Love Me
Yeah.
Tender, and I
Yes,
really
Yeah.
like it.
and watch the performance from Love Me Tender. The actual performance is great. I think the Jordanaires are on it, maybe, but
Mm.
great song, and it's such a treat,
Well,
the whole backyard tape thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a fantastic release. We hope you all enjoy it.
Mhm.
Let us know in the comment section how your experience was. What did you think of it? How was the crowd? Did you all applaud? In my theater, we all applaud at the end. It was a great time.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Uh, it was, as Paul said during the Give My Regards to Broad Street promotional tour, a good night out. And that's what I thought it was. It was a good night out, and I think we all agree it was a good night out. So
Good afternoon out.
Afternoon
yes,
for me
good
too.
afternoon.
Hmm.
Yes, there you go. So, well, as before we go, we're all going to go around the horn and let everybody know what the hell we've been doing the last last month or so.
Couple
Queen,
of
why don't we
weeks.
go ahead and start with you? Yeah,
Okay. Before I get to my stuff, let's
yeah.
let everybody know how to reach us. First of all, of course, you can reach us right here on this channel, and please subscribe. We're getting closer closer and closer to 2,000 subs. So please let's get those numbers up, and hit the subscribe button, and tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody to subscribe, and you'll be notified. Hit the bell, and you'll be notified of new episodes as soon as they come up. You can also reach us on our Facebook page, and if you hit the like button there, you will also be notified of new episodes and also of what we're doing, any news that's coming up. You can also find us on Twitter at talkmoretalk1. That's the number one. You can also email us your feedback, any ideas you may have for future episodes. Talkmoresolotalk at gmail.com. And you can also find the audio version of this show on virtually any podcasting platform you can possibly think of. Spotify, iTunes, you name it, we're there. And also on our website at talkmoretalk.com. So as far as I'm concerned, there are more episodes of Toppermost of the Poppermost coming. All of our August 1964 episodes are available at toppermostofthepoppermost.net, and our September episodes are rolling out as we speak, and we are in the midst of recording our October ones. So we're just churning them out. The Beatles, of course, are all over the charts by now on both the US and UK sides. We've got some special guests coming up, so don't miss them. I will be a guest again on the Tuesday Night Record Club at Monmouth University on Tuesday, October 1st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Ken Womack and I are going to be discussing Tea for the Tillerman by Cat Stevens. Beautiful, beautiful album, classic.
Yes.
Yep. And so join us. It is absolutely free. You just have to register on Zoom. I think I have the link up, or I think Ken put it up on our Talk More Talk Facebook page, so you can find the link there. You can find it on my page as well. And if you are in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, this coming weekend, October 4th through 5th, I am going to be there with my book, Songs We're Singing, and I'm going to be giving a talk October 5th. I don't know the exact time yet. That schedule should be up on the FabFest website this week. Top 10 Beatles sounds that changed the world. Other speakers will be there: Bruce Spicer, Gary Burr, who's been on this show, of course, good friend of ours, and Greg Bissonette. And we're just talking about him on the show tonight, many other bands. It's going to be a blast. So I hope to see you guys there who are in that area. And so I think that's everything.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, Mr. Mayo, what say you, my friend?
That's my YouTube channel is Mean Mr. Mayo, not to be confused with Mean Mr. Mustard. All right. And I've got some stuff up there. Newly, I did the one-hand clapping interview, which you don't need to see, I guess, if you watch this, because I cover more ground, I think, here than I did on my video. But I put that up today. And recently, I did an interview with Terry Crane.
Great
Who
guy.
did the the NEMS book of Beatle collectibles, and I was doing it with my friend Mikey Arugula, just like the lettuce, the salad. That's Mikey Arugula. And I'm going to be seeing Mikey Arugula next week again, going back to his place to get a load of his collectibles, which I'll put a video up of examining his collectibles. That's not done yet. I still have to do it, edit it, shoot it with him. All right. Now, something else I'm going to be putting a video up, which I haven't made either of, is that recently, yesterday, in fact, at my record store, I picked up a interesting item. It was a 1965 letter, January 1965, from a barber who cut the Beatles' hair to somebody I think used to collect the Beatles, ask him for the Beatles' hair, some woman. And in this letter, which it has the envelope, it has the date, it's from the Dingle in Liverpool, the barber shop. It's got no hair in there. There's no Beatles hair, but it's a letter saying how sorry he is that the Beatles, since they've become internationally famous, no longer are in Liverpool much. This is January 65. But he still sees Jerry Marsden of Jerry and the Pacemakers on the foremost, if you want some snippets of their hair. I just I have to have this letter. It's so unique, and the fact that it was Liverpool barbershop and it was the Beatles were mentioned and Jerry was mentioned and so forth, and it deals with the Beatles hair, the famous Beatle haircuts.
Right.
And all that. I thought I had to have it. It was great. So I got that. I'm going to make a video about that, showing you the
Cool.
letter and everything as good as well as I can, on my camera and everything. Then I have a movie channel. The movie channel is now called Mr. Cinemeo, like cinema with Cinemeo. And Tom's laughing because of the gag is that I always change the title. And Halloween is coming up, and it specializes, but it's not only Halloween type horror movies and things. Since it's going to be Halloween month, I'm going to try something different. If you're interested in horror movies, I'm going to try to only see movies in October to review on my channel that I've never seen before. A lot of times, I go through familiar favorites and I just talk about things off the cuff that I know already. But it'll be interesting for me to try. Not saying it's going to be 30 or 31. Could be one, knowing me. No, maybe 10, 20, who knows. And that's what'll be on my movie channel. If you're interested, Mr. Cinemeo.
Right.
And
All
I think
right.
that's all I got, unless I missed something.
No, and thank you, Joe, for having me involved with your movie channel. It's a lot of fun
Yeah,
doing.
and I forgot that. So this guy
the-
Tom comes
yeah,
on my movie. We do a movie. It's not a regular show on the movie channel, but Tom
right,
and I try to do it sort of regularly where we talk about
right,
movies. It's a live show where you could
yeah,
ask questions, give comments, and that's on the Mr.
right,
Cinemeo channel. Also, if you just look at the
right.
playlists.
There you go.
Hmm.
All right, Ken Michaels, what have you been up to?
Well, first of all, before I get into that, since you thanked Joe for reminding you about Kung Fu fighting, I wanted to make mention. Did you happen to catch what Wings were rehearsing in one hand clapping while there was talk over it?
No, I probably was too busy trying to decipher what they were saying.
They were rehearsing Billy Don't Be a Hero.
I saw the
Oh.
credits at the end, and I said, "Where was that?"
Oh
Yes, good
no.
points. Good points.
Oh great, another 70s earworm. Oh no.
Well, me being one hand clapping part 2, the CD will get that.
Such happy
Right.
music.
One can only hope.
I can't
Yes.
wait.
All right, on my video channel, Ken Michaels Radio. Still makes no sense to call it radio, but it's Ken Michaels Radio, my video channel on YouTube. My most recent video, I'm really proud of. It's a subject that I wanted to do for quite a while. It's an early versus late Beatles show. And the reason why I wanted to do it is because I've kind of felt that the first half of the Beatles' careers as a group doesn't get the love and the admiration and the appreciation that the later stuff does. And we go into why that is. And Bruce Spicer was a guest on the show, as was Al Sussman, and Walter Everett, who's written a couple of books on the Beatles and has also been part of the RPM School, in which he gets together with 2 other musicians, one of which is Jack Petrocelli from the Fab Four. And there's a guy named Cameron Greider, who is a musician and producer. He's worked with Sean Lennon. They're very heavily into the songwriting aspect of the Beatles in the RPM School website, which is all about lessons on the songwriting part of the Beatles. So we discussed this whole thing about early versus late Beatles. And it's just something that I've noticed over the years, especially in radio, that you barely ever hear anything pre-1967 from the Beatles on the radio, unless it's an oldie station that still plays 60s, and they're getting harder and harder to find these days.
That's for sure.
But certainly classic rock radio, for a long time, they hardly ever play anything before 1967. Not talking about a weekly Beatles show, but you have to have a special reason to play anything before 1967. So we talk about why we should appreciate the early Beatles music more than it is currently. And so it's the 3 of them and I having a conversation about that in depth. And that's on Ken Michaels Radio. There'll be more videos coming. Please subscribe to that channel. Also, on Things We Said Today, we did a show which was the same thing as we just did here, talking about Ringo's band and the current tour and one hand clapping in the theaters, in the movie theaters. So that's the things we said today. Please subscribe to that. My radio show, Every Little Thing, the best way you can hear it is on WFDU's website, WFDU.FM. They archive the last 2 shows that they ran on the radio station, and each show they make available for 2 weeks. Go to WFDU.FM, go to their archives page, type in Every Little Thing. There's 2 shows there you can listen to on demand whenever you want. Okay. And on Every Little Thing, I'm working on finishing up John Lennon special for his birthday, which will be the next show that'll air, possibly this coming week or the following week, which would be the week of John's birthday. And of course, there's my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, with Beatles trivia every couple of weeks, where you can win 1 out of 10 really great prizes, books, CDs, DVDs, you name it. Visit the website, kenmichaelsradio.com, and please email me at everylittlething@att.net if you want to discuss this show, things we said today, my YouTube channel, my website, anything you want. Send me a postcard, drop me a line at everylittlething@att.net.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. For myself and my partner Andy at Two Legs, 2 weeks ago we dropped an episode where we talked about our top 20 B-sides from McCartney's solo career. That was kind of like a response to our friend Beatles Tones version of that video. Last week we did an interesting show regarding Paul's most decisive albums, the albums that kind of divide the fan bases, the ones that you see people saying they don't necessarily like, and then the ones you see the people say they love. So it's really, it's just, we each pick one album that we think that kind of divides the fan base, and I think we're gonna do another part 2 of that soon. This past weekend, we just dropped our latest episode with our friend Dino V, who has been on Ken's YouTube channel before. And this time we talk about the bad rap or the bad reputation that Driving Rain gets. And we talk about 5 reasons why that may be. And we had a lot of fun talking about that topic. So check that out. That's our YouTube channel, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. Please check it out and subscribe. And as we've all said, please subscribe to all of our channels. We love seeing new people join, and we love hearing from you in the comment section. Myself and my co-host Andy, we try to go live once a week as individuals, not necessarily as a team. So that way we kind of like get out there a little bit more and interact with the fans, and that's been a lot of fun doing that. So yeah, we got a lot more shows coming up, and we can't wait for all of you to join us for that. So that being said, oh, go ahead, Ken.
He just reminded me that maybe a year or 2 ago, I did a show just like you said on Driving Rain, defending it with Dave
Right.
Ghosty Wells. So if
That's
you want
right.
another opinion about
Right.
visit my channel for that.
Right, there you go. So that being said, that's going to do it for this installment of Talk More Talk, is Solo Beatles videocast. So for Ken Michaels, Joe Mayo, Kid O'Toole, I'm Tom Hanyati saying he's a poet and he's a picker. He's a prophet and he's a pusher. He's a pilgrim and a preacher and a problem when he's stoned. He's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction, taking every wrong direction on his lonely way home. Rest in peace, Chris Christopherson. Take care.